Silence your cell phones now.
Morning of September 11th, the whole world changed.
I don't think America was prepared for something like this to happen in our country.
We were driven together. What COVID did was drive us apart.
What's going on, YouTube? It's SCN, place to be. Children, Mr. Andy, back to give you guys another movie experience. It's been a while since we brought you guys the movie experience, and now we're going to be reviewing movies that we have watched, but we just we haven't got to because our summer has just been so crazy. And I appreciate you guys sticking with us. And I know that a lot of these movie reviews are coming late, so I'm going to try to group some of them together and some that deserve their own review. And this time we'll take out the new HBO documentary, the NYC Epicenters, 9/11 to 2021 and a half, because this is Spike Lee doing a documentary about 9/11 and COVID. And I thought I was a little, apprehensive going in there at first, but it's a wonderful, wonderful documentary. So we're doing this here on audio. Make sure I talk about it on the podcast, give you guys a complete breakdown of the whole documentary. It's a great documentary. It's a great watch. Check it out on HBO Max or Hulu with the HBO extension. It's really good. I hope you guys enjoy it, and stay tuned for more movie experiences. Make sure to hit that subscribe button for more movie experiences every single weekend going on forward. So once again, this is NCN Place to Be. Chill Train, Mr. A&D, and I'll see you at the movies.
We're going to segue into 9/11. It has been 20 years since the awful attack on 9/11 in New York, of the Twin Towers going down. Now, I don't want to talk too much negative about it, but I remember you had an experience of you going to the World Trade Center and the area of 9/11.
Yes.
Could you share that?
Yes, I can. There's a couple things I want to share too, because there was a new documentary that came out that I want to do a movie experience on. Real quick. So I am, for some reason, I've took a big interest in 9/11, and I'm like a history buff. I love history. And I love studying it better. I remember I was in college, and I remember when 102 Minutes first came out. I was the first one and only one at the library asking for the new book. And I was like, really? But anyway, so my wife in 2018 got me tickets to the 9/11 Museum. And I was just like, oh my God, we gotta go. And it's also cool because I had never been in New York before. Never. So I was excited. We took the mega bus, and it took us right there. And we got there, and we literally walked. We was in Manhattan and walked to the site. And bruh, it doesn't compare seeing it on TV. It fails in comparison seeing it on TV, because you don't know how massive and big those buildings were until you step into the footprints. And it's so beautiful. It's very peaceful because it's a memorial site. It's like a cemetery almost.
Right.
And the first thing you see is Freedom Tower, which is the new tower that they built there. God, I think it's intimidating, right, because they built it bigger than the trade towers, and it is so huge, so huge. And I stood right there at the footprint of it and looked up, and I'm just like, yo, the thing is going into the sky. I can't see it no more.
Right.
But then I walked over to the footprints, and you go there and you see all the names. And when I say it is too many names of all people that they lost in the towers. And if you had died in the South Tower, or the plane that struck the South Tower, or the North Tower, the plane that struck the North Tower, whatever the case may be, that's where your name was at. And of course, they added people who died in 93, and then the Pentagon and Flight 93. They add all of them. You just see all the names there. It's very peaceful. They went to the museum, and that was one of the best museums I've ever been to in my life. It's eerie, it's sad, it's peaceful, and I'm glad that people get to celebrate this form of history, because it wasn't that long ago. But technology was that long ago. And sometimes, back then when it happened, if you wasn't going to your house to pull out your JVC, you wasn't recording it. We didn't have cameras on our phones back then. That would have been a whole lot different if we had cameras on our phones back then. But we don't. So, them just having pictures of the wreckage, and this is the old antenna, this is the plane engine, this is the fire truck, whatever the case may be, you got to see them up close and personal. Then there was a section of the museum where they have all the deep personal stuff at. There's no cameras allowed in that part. And they have a section of people who unfortunately had to jump from the building. And they have pictures of stuff that's still in the dust from 9/11. And bicycle rails of the people, the delivery people who made a delivery and never came back out, and all that kind of stuff like that. Those kind of things is sentimental. And then one of my favorite parts is the whole hall where they have a picture of every single victim on there. It's a lot of fucking people. Excuse my language. And they have a digital book that you can just scroll through. And if you tap on the picture, there's a story that's narrated by a family member that tells them where they were at and what about them, so you can get more context of who these people are.
That's actually nice, a family member doing it.
Exactly, because it's not no museum choreographer. It's a family member that's narrating, talking about their family member with the picture and giving them a little brief biography or synopsis of who this person was. And anybody that's there, you can click on that digital book and find them. Anybody. So that right there, and it's like three, like they had all the pictures up, so you can walk past all the pictures, but and all the pictures are inside like these little glass cases type thing, so they will never get damaged. But then there's only like 3 or 4 digital books, and sometimes you be waiting in line because if a family member is there, I'm not going to tell them to hurry up. But you know, if it's tourists, they're looking through people. We got 3,000 people that died. You can't go through every single one, obviously, like you want to. But if something stands out to you, or something you might have heard something about this person, you can go and find out more about them. I thought that was the best part of the museum.
Nice.
I thought it was the best part. And if anybody goes to New York, I recommend they at least, check it out, because it is a good piece of history.
I've only been to the World Trade Center area.
That's where it's at.
No, the mall thing, which I thought will be more of a museum than a mall.
The mall? I'm kind of lost.
There was a white building right next to where the Twin Towers were, and the World Trade Center was. If you go in there, there's a shopping center.
Oh, you know what? That's the other little small museum they got.
I didn't even know there was a museum part. I thought it was just that. I'm not gonna lie, I was disappointed when I went to New York and found out.
No. Okay, so you know what those two big, as they call them, the footprints are at, with the waterfalls?
Yes.
The museum is underneath that.
Okay. So
that's
we
what
gotta
the
go deeper underground.
Yeah, you go underground to see the whole museum.
Okay, gotcha.
That's where the 9/11 National Museum is at, and then next to all that is the new Freedom Tower.
Okay.
That's right there. So yeah, and it like I said, if you ever go to that part, because at first we wasn't going to that little white building. Yeah, no, don't go there. You are not experiencing the full impact of that museum in that day. If you go in there,
that's where I thought I was, but yeah, I was. My ankles broke.
Yes. Exactly. So if you do go back to New York and do that also. But I wanted to give a quick movie experience about a new documentary that I was a little scared of that came out called NYC EPICENTERS 2001 to 2021 and a half. And you may be thinking, well, why were you nervous about that? I'll tell you why, because it was done by Spike Lee. So I was sitting there. So it was a 4-part documentary. Each part was being 2 hours, right? Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest with you, I was there. I was like, oh my God, Spike Lee's going to tackle 9/11. And I was like, we know how brutal and upfront Spike Lee is,
Right.
do we not? And I was scared. And honestly, I was also kind of curious because no disrespect to Spike Lee, when it comes to documentary stuff like that, Spike Lee handles a lot of things that happen to a lot of POCs, people of color, especially black people. Where 9/11, it was a diverse group of people that died, but the majority of people that death were white people.
Right.
And I was like, I don't know how he's going to handle this.
Right.
And then he was talking about COVID also. So he was talking about all the episodes that happened in New York from 9/11 and on to. And I have to tell you this. I just watched part 4, finished it yesterday. This is one of Spike Lee's best works to date.
That's great.
To date. Because first of all, I'm going to give you guys the good, the bad, the experience. Starting off with the good being, so Spike was smart. This started 4 weeks ago. And the way the documentary is, he goes from present day backwards. He don't start with 9/11 because the final part came out on 9/11. So why would you talk about coronavirus on 9/11?
So it's like a series.
So it's a docu-series.
Okay. I thought it was just one movie.
You know, it's a 4-part thing. It's all on HBO Max.
Okay.
The first part is talking about COVID because New York City was the epicenter when COVID first came here, and given all the COVID stories from 2020, the stories that he's interviewing these people, and I like when he brings the people on, Spike Lee, he has them tell who they are in the camera with their mask on and everything, and then they break down what their story is. And what Spike Lee does, which I haven't seen Spike Lee do a lot, when it's about to get emotional or something like that, he would make certain jokes or uplift the mood a little bit so they won't be as down.
Right.
I like that. He would, talk about the Yankees or the Mets or his New York teams and how you a Red Sox fan, stuff like that. Or if there's a line that's powerful, he will tell somebody to repeat that line for them and say it again. And he interviews a diverse group of people. It's not because of course you want to put your people out in the limelight because we're never out in the limelight.
Right.
But he does everybody who was affected by this COVID, and he gets his celebrity friends like Rosie Perez or Jeffrey White, and they talk about them just being up all night long with ambulances just running people to the hospital with COVID, and how everything was on lockdown in Brooklyn and you couldn't get out and stuff like that. And it was just hard. And they talk about Governor Cuomo and his bullshit and all that stuff like that. Part 2, in my personal opinion, well, no, I'll get that in my bed. Then there's part 2. Part 2 focuses on the January 6th insurrection, the former president, and the first lady to get the vaccine in New York, and the ones who worked on the COVID vaccine, which they were people of color and a black woman who worked on the vaccine, which a lot of people don't know that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he went out and got it, and I was just like, yo, people like us have been working on this thing, and they've been the ones that's been, about that, but they don't ever want to tell nobody that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'll double back to part 2. Part 3 is to me the most beautiful part, because now after part 2 is over, we get a montage, and then we get to this clear sky. Then it fades into the towers being on fire as we start with part 3. Now, part 3, we're back in 2001. We went backwards, and Spike Lee loves musicals, and he has a very good musical talking about the city of New York, and he interviews all kinds of politicians, regular people, Jon Stewart, and just people that were there. And I'm gonna tell you this, Swag. I was upset that I didn't know this, because he interviews women firefighters that were there at Ground Zero. I didn't know there weren't any there.
I didn't know there were women firefighters at all.
Yeah.
Well, at that moment.
Yeah. He interviews the black women firefighters that were there. He interviews the black and brown and beige flight attendants that worked on United. I didn't know they had any.
Right.
I did not know that the pilot on on Flight 93 was black. I didn't know they had some black flight attendants on there. I didn't know any of this stuff. And they're telling the story, and then he talks to, remember the movie I showed you with Joseph Gordon-Levitt about Felipe, who crossed the Twin Towers on the tightrope?
Yeah.
He interviews him.
I didn't know he was still alive.
Yeah, he's still alive.
Okay.
And still charismatic as ever. Then he interviews the guy who parachuted off the World Trade Center in 1975.
Oh wow.
What else he does? He also interviews what was it? Oh, he goes into the construction of the World Trade Center. Did you know 60 workers died on the building of the World Trade Center?
No, I didn't.
Neither did I. Like, I was watching this joint like I was intrigued. So then he's talking to these different people. This black woman who she's a dancer and an actress, but her husband his name was Calvin Gooden Jr. and he was part of Cantor Fitzgerald. And for those who don't know, Cantor Fitzgerald lost the most employees that day on 9/11 with 658. No Cantor Fitzgerald employee made out the World Trade Center. And their floors was 101 to 105. So they was right there above their fire and they couldn't get out. So, with that being said, she gets to tell her story. And I like that, we don't get to hear too many stories from POCs during 9/11. Especially all the documentaries you hear. We do hear from some of them. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying all documentaries is all white. No, because it's not about that when it comes to 9/11. But it was cool to hear different stories. We got he talked to the fire chief that was the first responder on 9/11, and the guy who was recording a documentary about firefighters to go in there with him, and it have all the footage, man. And it's just like, yo, you got to have some kind of balls to do that job.
Right.
I always have respect for them to have the balls to do that for that firefighter job. And he interviews all of them, and then he always, if somebody lost somebody, he makes sure he gives them respect and shows the victim of what happened. And then, of course, there are, Spike Lee is going to show people jumping from the building, and it's very unfortunate to see that you don't see them hit the ground or see any dead body parts on the ground. They were there, but because how Spike Lee can get
right
to get to his point, but we don't see that. I'm happy to report that.
Okay.
Part 4 is another good part of mine, because they talk about the aftermath. Well, a lot of these tragedies, everybody's saying like we all came together and we was all patriotic, and they was just like, yo, let me tell y'all what really was happening. They was down there, and they talk about the cleanup, and there was this woman, a scientist, who said that the air was okay to breathe, and it wasn't. And then Spike brought her back on to say, yo, this is what you told us back 20 years ago. What happened? Because those firefighters were breathing in mercury, asbestos, concrete, glass, and DNA from people. All this stuff that you don't think about, because with the kinetic energy of how the buildings fell down, and you gotta think, how many fluorescent lights is on one floor of the World Trade Center alone? Probably about over 1,000.
Right.
You got 110 floors of that. You got mechanical work. You have jet fuel. You got burning wood and desk and metal, and you also have people. who, when the plane hit, it just exploded. And all that is compacted into this dust. And you're breathing that in. The count for 9/11 victims is still going up for firefighters dying of cancer to this day.
I watched a Shark Tank episode where it was a firefighter who died for that.
Yeah.
Recently, actually. So it's definitely still going up.
It's still going. It's sad, and they talked about how the police and the government was trying to shut down the cleanup site because they wanted to get Wall Street back up in order because that's where Wall Street was at.
Right.
But the firefighters got in a fight with the police officers that wouldn't let them back down in there.
Right.
And I was just like, what the hell is this world coming to? This is 2001. And then they talked about the racism against the Taliban people and how there were hate murders, not crimes, murders of Taliban people. And he put the whole list of people. It had to be over 25 names.
Right.
Too many names. And he talked to the different Taliban people of how they felt after the days of 9/11 and how we racially profiled them. They talked to people who actually did racial profiling of the Taliban back then, and it's horrible. It's horrible of what these people had to go through because Taliban people died at 9/11 too. They did kill some of their own people. They did that. They talked to the families of, if you ever seen the documentary called The Falling Man, which is the famous picture of the man coming head first down.
Never seen it.
You never seen the Fallen Man picture?
No.
It's the most popular or the most talked about and controversial picture of 9/11. It's a man falling, and he's falling head first. Now, it's one frame because he's actually tumbling out of control. But the frame that it just got it at head first, and it was like showing the horror of the day. Yeah, so if you just type in The Fallen Man, that's the first thing that's going to come up. And the identity of the Fallen Man was between these two families. And it was a Hispanic family and a black family. He brought both of them on and to talk about it. Because he did a documentary of it called The Fallen Man before. I seen a documentary a couple years ago. And he brought a person on who took the picture and who did the documentary. And it was just so much information that I did not even know about. I'm not gonna sit here and give it to you break by break right in there. But me and my wife every week was like, yo, we gotta see the next part. We gotta see the next part. The weakest part to me was part 2. And part 2 was like, okay, yes, we got the person from New York who got the first vaccine, or the black women who helped create the vaccines. But then we start talking to the New York people from New York, talk about January 6th. He kind of goes on like a little bit of a Trump rant. I mean, I ain't mad at him because shit happened, but then we go into what happened in the summer in New York with the Black Lives Matter, and then George Floyd, and Ahmaud Arbery, and then all the stuff. So Spike Lee don't mind showing what happened to black people. You know what I'm saying? So I was just like, yeah, I get it, and it need to be said. It just almost felt out of place. And it's not a bad part by no means. I enjoy the part. It's very educational. You need to see it, what happened, because a lot of protests did happen in New York. But it was just like, okay, we got to find a way to put this in there. But it balances. It in a whole, it balances. And then there's a part he does cut out. He did record some 9/11 truthers and conspiracy theories, and he got some backlash for that. So he cut it out the final part of the film. But he did say that if he does a Blu-ray, something like that, he'll put it in there so people can see them say their piece and all that stuff like that.
Right.
But that was one of the best 9/11 documentaries I have seen. One of Spike Lee's best documentaries that I have seen from him. And there's a lot of heartwarming moments. There's a lot of things I was like, yo, Spike, I didn't know you did that. That was dope for you to do. And a lot of stories you hear from people that you have not heard in any other documentary before, because he gives them chance to speak. he gets their voice to be heard, especially the women firefighters, the black firefighters, you know, the black flight attendants and attendees, and the people from, you know, in school. And it ain't just black people; it's black, brown, white, Asian, Hispanic. It doesn't matter. But a lot of these stories are not necessarily told, because sometimes in a lot of documentaries, because I've seen damn near all of them, you hear the same story over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Type thing. But this one was good. And I'm telling you right now, when it comes to the NYC epicenters, I'm giving it a complete nerdgasm.
Oh, wow. I
Nerdgasm.
want to check this out because it is Spike Lee going in a direction we're not expecting.
Exactly.
So
that's why I think you enjoy it. It's on HBO Max. I know you're busy, but whenever you have the time, because I was watching on actual HBO when it came up, but HBO Max, you can go ahead and stream it. Or if you have the Hulu version and you can get HBO from Hulu, do it that way. But it's all on in there. Watch part 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 4 parts. Each part is 2 hours, except for the last part, which is 90 minutes, because he cut out the 9/11 truthers part. In my personal opinion, part 3 was the best part.
Okay.
But part 3 and 4 as a whole, talking about 9/11, I think was one of the best 9/11 documentaries you will ever see, and it's the most informative stuff. He even talked about the largest boat rescue in the city of New York's history, how they saved over 400,000 people off the island of Manhattan. Nobody talks about that. How them ferries had to come over to Manhattan and come get the people off into the ferry and drive over to New Jersey. They don't ever talk about that. And he talks about all the stuff that you don't even think about, and you got to put your hand to your head like, I didn't think of that. He brings it up in this documentary.
Right.
And that's why I love about it, because a lot of other documentaries don't bring it up, or they don't bring it up until like years later. But I've seen about 80 to 90% of all those 9/11 documentaries is out there, and this one was refreshing.
Okay. I would try my best to check it out.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious to hear what you say. Say what?
I'm hit or miss with documentaries. Some documentaries I love, some are like, you know what, that was alright. But because it's a Spike Lee going into a different direction, that's where I'm more curious on than anything.
Yeah.
Where I didn't even know Spike Lee could do that.
Bro, he even interviews Busta Rhymes.
Did he interview Ja Rule?
No.
Because we had to know what Ja Rule thinks about this match.
But you know what's funny? I didn't even know Busta Rhymes was living on the block when 9/11 happened.
Oh, he was living on the block. Okay.
He said when the plane hit the
interview him?
But when the plane hit the tower, he said it knocked his lamp off the table.
Oh.
That's how close he was. Of the vibration and shake and stuff like that, of what was going on, and he interviews a lot of celebrities and a lot of regular people who have lost loved ones in 9/11. And I think 12 black firefighters died that day.
Wow.
Out of 343 black firefighters, I didn't even know there was 12 on there.
Yeah, I didn't even know either.
And I didn't know there was any women firefighters down there either. And he goes into the whole history about how women weren't allowed to join the firefighter, to be a firefighter, and how they had to fight to do that.
I didn't even know these were things.
Exactly, but see, they don't teach you. People don't know. They can keep you ignorant.
Right.
And Spike Lee does it in a way where he educates you and makes you want more without throwing it in your face like Spike Lee usually does.
Right.
Because Spike Lee will slap shit out you over and over again. Like, I get it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But even if you just want to watch the 9/11 parts, I recommend you watch the whole thing because it talks about COVID also.
Right.
But I do recommend you watch the whole documentary. But if you just want to watch part 3 and 4, that's the part that's strictly based on 9/11.
Gotcha. Because I'm almost tired of hearing about COVID.
Yeah, I feel you.